Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. Well, today I am doing the full in-depth review of my reverse Panda Yema RallyGraf. This one here was an interesting watch to pick up. It was an interesting find for me. I'd seen it before out there and it did interest me, but it wasn't something that I was hugely drawn towards. And it wasn't until this one popped up at a really affordable price for me that I thought, you know what, I want to give that one a go. Plus, I'd always wanted to own a Yema watch, but I wasn't quite sure which one within their range that I wanted to own. And when it all lined up, I picked this one up, and I'm so glad that I did because it's such a good watch. And this one you can pick up brand new for about $350 US, which I think is actually a really fair price for this watch. But there are some out there on the used market as well, which may be worthwhile considering. Now guys, before we jump into the full in-depth review, I want to tell you two things. Firstly, can you just tap on that subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed? I really would appreciate it. Secondly, I want to say something about quartz watches. Now, I like quartz watches. I've got nothing against quartz watches, but I'm not overly drawn towards them. I'll enjoy one every now and then. I've been trying to buy a few this year. I've owned a few really interesting and nice watches, but I've really sort of come to understand that I really love automatic watches, and they are what I'm primarily drawn towards. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with owning lots of automatics and having a couple of quartz as well. But there's something that is often said on YouTube channels, and I'm fairly sure I've said it myself, and that is it's worth having a quartz watch in your collection to have a grab and go watch. A watch that if you're in a rush, if you don't have time, if you don't want to think about it, you can just grab that quartz watch out of your collection, stick it on your wrist, and you know it has the correct time, the date on it. No fluffing about with setting dates and times on an automatic watch. You don't need to think about it. That's the one you go for. And that makes a lot of sense to me. It really does. My logical brain says, what a good idea. Let's have a grab and go quartz watch in the collection. But in reality, has that actually worked for me? And prior to buying this watch, it actually had not. Because I have a fairly busy life. On many occasions, I've actually gone to my watch box thinking, geez, I'm in a rush, grab a watch. And I thought, oh, perfect time to do the grab and go. I'll grab one of those quartz watches that I have. I've owned a few this year that have been nice. I've had some nice options to grab. And I have to tell you, every single time, I have not grabbed the quartz watch. I've grabbed one of my automatic watches with the knowledge that it's not probably set to the right time, but at some point over the next hour or two, I'll have a few minutes where I can set the date, set the time, and I'll be fine. I'll have my phone in my pocket anyway, so I'll know what the time is. That was up until I bought this watch, this Yema RallyGraf. I had a similar situation occur. I was running out the door. I was running late. I went to my watch box and I thought, grab and go watch. No, normally I don't bother. I'll get my automatic. And then I thought, ooh, that Yema is there. I want to wear that Yema watch. And that's when it really hit me that this is not just a good watch. This is a watch that I really, really enjoy wearing and I really like the look of. So when I start talking about this watch in the full review, there's going to be a little bit of love for it because I think it's actually a really nice watch. Now, sorry for talking so much in the intro. Let's get past that and let's flip the camera around now to the full in-depth review of my Yema RallyGraf. Well, I have to say that I am rather actually excited to share with you my Yema RallyGraf model number YMHF1572-AM, which on the website retails brand new for $349 US. But why am I so excited to show you this watch? Well, there's a couple of things. This is a quartz watch, and I like quartz watches, but I do find that I don't really connect with them like I do mechanical and automatic watches. I really enjoy that sort of connection that I have with a watch, and it tends to be automatic or hand-winding mechanical watches. But I've had the connection with this watch, and I have that connection for quite a few reasons, and I'm going to be showing you that as I go along. Firstly, the case is really, really nice. It presents so well. Even the warranty card is in like a leather sort of thing there. Comes on a really nice Milanese strap, which I'm really appreciating and really enjoying as well. But let me show you around this watch and let me show you why I've been enjoying owning this one. Firstly, I think I picked the best variation, or the variation that suits me. This is the reverse Panda, which means it has a dark dial with the white subdials. It also comes as a normal Panda, so it has a white dial and 2 dark subdials. This one here is designed by Yema to be very much racing, sort of vintage race car dashboard display, and that's what they actually say on their website. They're saying these subdials are meant to look like dashboard instruments on a vintage race car, and they've got a few racing sort of theme things going on as well, with that tachometer as well as a checkered flag on the dial. And along with that sort of vintage style theme of the watch, they've also sort of gone with sort of vintage sort of size dimensions. Well, not really true vintage size dimensions, but slightly more vintage by making it a little bit smaller than some of the watches that we get today. The overall case here is 38mm. Well, I'm actually going to flip it over to show you that. 30mm case that way. I'm going to show you that because the bezel does overhang it very slightly at 39mm. So on wrist it actually feels a tiny bit bigger than a 38mm. It has a thickness of 13mm, and you'll see a big part of that is that domed crystal there. It has a lug to lug of 47.8mm, 20mm lug width, and on this very nice Milanese bracelet that it comes with, it weighs in at just over 110 grams. So not a particularly heavy watch, but part of that reason is not just the size, but it is obviously a quartz watch powered by the VK64 Seiko movement, which I'm very happy in this movement. Being a chronograph, as soon as you make it a mechanical or automatic watch, it would be very expensive. And at this sort of price point, I think you're getting a lot for your money. But let's have a look at it in a little bit closer detail. And why do I like this reverse Panda so much? Well, personally, I do like the aesthetic look, but I love that grey Sunburst dial that they've used. It's a beautiful color, really impressive, and it's really quite hard to show off in the studio. So I'm going to put some outdoor shots, which hopefully show it a little bit better. The countersunk sort of off-white subdials there, really cool shape. We have applied indices, and they're very cool sort of applied indices as well. I'm going to try and show off to you now. You'll see there is some lume in there, but there's sort of 2 strips of polished steel with a slightly sunken piece of lume in between them. We have 1 long indice at the 12 o'clock. All the rest are halves, obviously then broken up by the date wheel at the 6 o'clock here. Not color matched, but I think it actually does suit the watch. All the rest of the text and applied things are printed on. Around the outside between those applied indices, we have a sort of a railway style sort of looking minute track and second track. Within those subdials, we have printed on in black. Again, this one here being the chronograph feature has a minute track as well as a 5-minute indicators, 20 and 40 and 60 underneath that arrow there. On the side here, we have a 24-hour subdial, all printed on as well. On the dial itself, the Yema symbol, Yema RallyGraf, those checkered flags and France written there, and they're all in like a silver sort of typed font. The hands are all polished stainless steel, plenty of lume in the hour and minute hand. I like how it pushes out onto that minute track as well. Nice slender second hand with a nice flash of red at the tip, which is nice. And talking about lume, let's throw in the lume shot now. Being a racing chronograph, we're not expecting massively great lume, and it's not particularly amazing, but it absolutely is perfectly adequate and fine for this style of watch. And whilst we're looking at the dial of the watch, well, let's activate this VK64 mechanical quartz movement. Top right activates the chrono as we would expect, ticks around, got the counter over here as we go along. To pause it, top right again. To pull back, it flicks back by pressing it in the bottom left. That's all covered by this nice top hat mineral crystal. Really nice crystal. It looks like it's sort of double domed. There's a little bit of a distortion at the edge just on that top hat section, which really sort of fits into that sort of vintage sort of vibe that this watch has going on. That is all surrounded by this solid bezel. It is a aluminium insert tachometer. It is in black, has the markings around as you can see. Again, fitting with that racing feel, and being aluminium certainly lends to that sort of vintage vibe as well. Now the rest of the watch is all polished. Polished tops of the lugs, polished on the side, polished on the case back, Particularly nice case pack. It's nice to see that Yema logo etched so deeply in there. We got some information there, as well as some of my fingerprints, which is one of the disappointments of an all polished case. But it says Yema RallyGraf, Montreux, and a few other bits and pieces. It does have 100 meters of water resistance. As you can see there, 10 bar, which I think is more than adequate for this watch. It certainly could have been less, but I'm glad that it is 100 meters. On those pushes there, you can see they are all polished as well, and it is the Yema signed, and it is quite a nice signature as well, and it really stands out prominently there from the crown. Crown is obviously not screwed down, so you can move it around. Being a quartz movement, obviously there's no push-pull, and we don't need to worry about hacking either because there is no ticking second hand on this particular watch. The Milanese bracelet that comes with it is probably the best Milanese I've ever experienced. It is very nice, it looks very good, has a nice thickness to it. Doesn't have the Yema on that section, but there is a safety latch there on this side which has the Yema logo etched in. The end is covered in with a piece of steel, and underneath you'll see there's all these little ridges which allows you to set it for the size that you want to fit your wrist. And I did find that it was very easy to set to my wrist, and it has plenty of room on that strap to fit to different sized wrists. And speaking about wrists, well, this is my 6 3/4 medium sized wrist, and how does it look? Well, I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Now, I know I can be a little bit judgy with sizes of watches, especially if they're under 40 millimeters. I've got nothing against smaller watches, but it has to be the right watch at that slightly smaller size for me. And this one ticks the box, possibly because the bezel overhangs a little bit more, making it a little bit longer. Maybe they sort of lug to lug, it's a little bit longer. Maybe it's also the style, but it all seems to come together and really sit nicely on my wrist. So what do I like about this watch? What don't I like, and what would I change? Well, this might be a weird like, but the thing that I like most about it is that I really, really like it. And in this section, I'm normally pointing out things, and I'm going to point out a few things. But depending on the watch that I'm showing, I may like it, but some that I really like, and this I really like. And what do I really like about it? I like the quality of it, and I like the look of it. I think it is a very cool looking dial. I like the sunburst effect on that dial. I like the dimensions. It suits this watch. Has a really cool case back. Nice Milanese style strap, which I do appreciate too. And there is a definite level of quality here. This is my first experience with Yema, and I know there are some negatives attached to the brand in regards to after sales care, but what I'm saying, with this watch in hand, I can say it is a lovely quality watch. So what are my dislikes? Well, I sort of just mentioned one. I haven't had this experience with it, but knowing that other people have had issues with after sales care, that is a bit of an issue. That is a bit of a dislike for me. I personally haven't had that issue. I've never had to contact or have had any issues with the watch. It's more probably a trepidation for me that if I had issues with the watch, that I might have some problems with the company. But I can't really complain about that because it's not something I've personally encountered. The loom is also not brilliant, but I don't really expect it to be brilliant in this style of watch, so it's perfectly acceptable. What would I change if I had the opportunity to change anything about it? Well, there's only one thing that I can think of, and I'm not even sure if it would make it better. It possibly would make it worse. But being all polished, it sort of does suit it. I do feel that it suits the watch, but possibly it might be nice to have a little bit of brushing in there somewhere. I'm not even sure I would sort of point out a particular spot to do that. Maybe it would make it better, possibly it would make it worse, but I do like a little bit of a mix between polishing and brushing. It does tend to emphasize certain parts of the watch really well. But let's flip back to me now, and let me give you some final thoughts about my Yema RallyGraf. So obviously I do really like this watch, and I probably spent a fair bit of time in the intro talking about it anyway, so I probably don't need to spend a huge amount of talk about it now to try and summarize everything I've already just said. So guys, all I can say is that I've really enjoyed wearing this watch. It has become part of my permanent collection. It's not going anywhere anytime soon, and I can't really give much more praise to a watch than that. I've owned other watches over the last couple of years that I've really liked, but they have ended up being sold on. This one may one day get sold, but not anytime soon. So that does mean I do like the watch, and I've handled lots of different watches over the years, so I feel I've got a little bit of experience that I can say, yeah, it's a good watch. But guys, if you are interested in watches like this, there are plenty of reviews out there online. There's plenty of interesting videos of people talking about it and showing the watch in different angles that are worthwhile checking out. And it is always worthwhile researching these watches, especially when you're forking out your own money. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I do hope to see you in the next video.